guys, good afternoon. AEG is the largest sports entertainment company in the world. And as such, it's incumbent on us to have the latest research, latest findings, the latest insights on who exactly is attending our shows and our live events. We produce over 7,000 concerts worldwide annually, so it's imperative for us to kind of understand who's coming to our shows to ensure that our fans are getting the most optimal experience at these events. Concurrently, I work for the sponsorship team, which means that we will need to continue to provide, without a shadow of a doubt, the strongest maximum ROI that we are providing our partners through effective ways to communicate through millennials through our live events. We have to quantifiably prove that the research that we're producing for them and the events that we're producing for them are creating unprecedented experiences, which is why we partnered with Momentum Worldwide, the premier experiential company in the world with a special expertise on activations around live events and music. Our goal was pretty simple. The genesis was to really understand what's going on in consumer behavior and music behavior among millennials in general. What are the music discovery, sharing, and purchase behaviors of today's music lover, specifically among millennials? Yesterday, I think Ann mentioned that if there should be a drinking game around the number of times people say millennials. And if that's the case, you're going to be intoxicated by about the first third of this presentation. Because this is all about millennials and the changing shifts, the attitudinal sort of adjustments, all the changes we're seeing in music and live events, and how that's impacted millennial culture. Now, we conducted this landmark study among 1,048 respondents, 75% of which are between the ages of 18 and 34, which we're defining as millennials. We also looked at non-millennials to really compare and contrast, identify similarities and differences in terms of how the 35-plus group, you know, those Xers and Boomers, in terms of how they view music, how they consume music, how it affects their sort of everyday quotidian behavior. Now, I guess in short, the net is that people really like music, especially millennials. 90% believe that music is their religion. It is how they define themselves. It makes their life better. And they integrate music into everything that they do, from being, in terms of how it motivates them, having fun, being in control, traveling, working out. It impacts every single thing that they do, millennials in particular. Now, this is a kind of interesting attribute because we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into terms of millennials and their passion for music, and non-millennials as well. So we want to look at various sort of kind of lifestyle attributes in terms of what they would be willing to give up if they didn't have access to music. And surprisingly, 1 in 4 millennials said that they'd be willing to give up sex if they could still have access to music, which is pretty alarming. But it just shows you how important music is to the young person. But what I thought was also interesting is that you look at the non-millennials is that 35% of the adults 35 plus are willing to give up coffee. Coffee versus sex, far out. I think that shows a clear distinction between the 18 to 34-year-old millennial and my Gen X cohorts. Now, in terms of how that manifests, and you see the impact that music has on young people's lives, how do brands play a role in terms of that experience? And what was surprising to see, especially when you hear about millennials and how they sniff out disingenuous sort of partnerships and really are cynical about ads in many ways, is how welcoming and appreciative they are of ads around brands around live events, as long as they're done well. And if you look at that difference between millennials who welcome brands around live events versus non-millennials, the differences are pretty striking. Anywhere in the range of 20 to 30%, they are more likely. In terms of 2/3 agree that brands belong in the music space, 2/3 agree that they like brands that sponsor live music events, and nearly 6 in 10 people welcome brands to music and music associations, which is hugely important. Now it's up to brands to figure out what's the most kind of authentic and compelling way to integrate themselves into the overall sort of live event music experience, especially when you look at the Gen Xers and older populations, older demographics. They really are less welcoming and less appreciative of that sort of kind of branded integration around live events. What we really see in terms of the research is the incomparable power of live music and live events to drive consumer behavior across the entire purchase funnel, from recommending brands to buying brands to liking that brand to thinking positively about that brand to thinking that the brand association around a live event is the coolest experience that they've seen. Buy a brand to ultimately trusting that brand. And what we're seeing is it's not just the striking differences between the millennials and the non-millennials, it's the millennials who attend live events versus those who don't. There's a 40% to 50% differential between people who attend live events around music and those who don't, and liking that brand, thinking about that brand. So if you really want to generate maximum ROI, it's really important for brands to recognize the importance of associating themselves with live music experiences. And even though those numbers are really strong across the purchase funnel, from the kind of high level in terms of affinity and avidity, all the way down to recommending and buy that brand, you see the impact in terms of creating unique experiences. And a lot of that is because 98% of attendees who go to our shows have a smartphone with them. We're more concerned about the 2% at this point in time who don't. But that's a conversation for another point in time. I think what's really important to recognize is that because they are tethered to their smartphones is that they expect immediate gratification and instant rewards. Whereas years ago, you expected Ed McMahon to kind of knock on your door and tell you won $1 million, or you enter these grandiose sweeps to kick a field goal at halftime in the Super Bowl. Today, it's less in terms of the sort of rich, sort of kind of protracted sweeps, and more about the immediate rewards. And if you look at this information, it's pretty spectacular in terms of if you get a surprise and delight or unique sort of exclusive content when you're at a live show, the numbers are overwhelmingly nearly 8 in 10 like the brand, trust the brand, recommend the brand, and buy the brand. Now, brand engagement is already strong regardless, but if you can provide a little bit of a surprise and delight, a little bit of a VIP sort of experience that allows these live event attendees to feel like they're ballers or VIPs, those numbers and affinity for that brand goes up even more. Social media is not just a nice thing to do. Now, it's incumbent on as a marketing promoter to make sure that, music promoter, to make sure that you have optimal connectivity so it allows live event attendees, allows music fans to connect via the social networks. But what was also striking is that 70% agree that having access to their social networks to engage on Twitter, Periscope, Snapchat, Meerkat, Facebook, and YouTube really improves the overall sort of totality of that experience. So the ability to share, to have those hashtag FOMO and FOMO and YOLO moments, I was there, you weren't, check me out, and share that across their networks is hugely important to them. It actually amplifies the overall brand experience. So as a marketer, you need to think about ways that you integrate organically to create those sort of visualizations at live shows, at a Coachella, at a Taylor Swift concert, to create those sort of really organic experiences, those second screen sort of pieces, those social media build-outs that creates opportunities for them to feel like that they're cultivating a richer experience as a result. Mobile obviously is core. I mean, that's obvious. But what's really remarkable is that while 1 in 2 millennials claim to be buying tickets on their mobile phone, that number was in the single digits only a couple years ago. There's no great science to it. If you can recall trying to buy tickets about 24 months ago on your phone, it was a pretty sucky experience, right? Now there's responsive sites. So everybody has the same sort of flawless, clean, elegant experience, regardless of the connected device they're on, to buy tickets to a show. So no longer do you have to worry about going back to your office or going back to your home, getting on a desktop and buying tickets. You can buy tickets directly from your mobile phone, and that number's only going to grow. So again, how do you integrate yourselves into that sort of kind of unique sort of mobile experience when you're buying tickets or in form of music discovery? And finally, we talk about music culture and the shifts in music culture. But what's really kind of phenomenal is how much the music culture has changed as a result of music streaming and digital downloading over the past 15 to 20 years. The previous music culture, pre-digital, was pretty linear, right? You discovered new music, you pulled out your cassette tapes, you hung out with your friends, put it on your boombox, you shared some CDs, and ultimately then you went to a show. And then you began the whole cycle again. Now it's much more of a holistic sort of kind of interdependent music behavior, music consumption model, in which you can learn about new music and discover new music from your phone or any connected device on Spotify or Pandora, and then you have the opportunity to then buy that music. And then ultimately you'll go to the show. But what's really fascinating is that you don't necessarily need to learn about new music in that sort of kind of linear fashion. You could now buy music after going to the show and learning about the new artist and then streaming. And how does that manifest? Well, you see, again, it's much more holistic. It's not that linear sort of format in terms of buying music and then going to the show. 78% of respondents want to purchase more music after attending a live event, while 83% of millennials claim that they plan to go to a show or a concert in the next 12 months. And finally, 73% of millennials want to stream more music after attending a live event. Again, it's a much more symbiotic relationship between streaming, purchasing, and attending live events. Now, as a result of the exhaustive research that was conducted by Momentum, we compiled what we call our 5 for fighting. Your 5 basic rules to understand and connect with millennials most effectively. The first rule is that live rules. Look, if you're a millennial, you're having a transformational moment listening to music and being in that music experience in that live show. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. As a brand, how do you make that once-in-a-lifetime experience that much more memorable? And if you saw that it's the incomparable power of live events and music to drive consumers to recommend or buy brands, and it's across the entire purchase funnel. And it's not just millennials versus the old guys like myself, the Xers or boomers. You're seeing the huge sort of kind of differences in terms of affinity and avidity, all the way down to trusting that brand, viewing that brand as more authentic, to ultimately buying that brand as a result of their association with live events. Live events are king. Personal memories. I brought up the exclusive content piece before, but the idea for a live event attendee to feel like they're a baller, to feel like they're a VIP by giving them some sort of unique sort of exclusive content that no one else has access to is huge. We did a program with Samsung in which anybody who had a Samsung Galaxy phone and could bring their Samsung Galaxy phone to 41 of our participating venues. And that was at Coachella, New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, Stagecoach, to Barclays Center in Brooklyn, to Staples Center in LA. If you brought your Samsung Galaxy phone into one of those venues, you immediately got a reward. So imagine going to Taylor Swift or seeing the LA Kings play, and you immediately get upgraded from your 300 levels to the Samsung Corporate Suite, or you get access to the club lounge, or you get side stage passes, or you got downloads to new music. The point is that everyone got an exclusive reward. It didn't have to be the greatest reward in the world, but it was something that added value to create an amplified sort of experience. At Coachella, if you brought your Samsung Galaxy phone, you had access to the VIP lounge, which meant that not only did you seek refuge from the 120-degree heat that you had in Palm Springs and Indio, you also had free merchandising and food credits. You essentially had the hottest ticket to the hottest show in the world. And that's what we're trying to do for all our partnerships around live events, is allow the fan, the enthusiast, to feel like they have access to the coolest sort of experience in the world. Social at its core. As I mentioned earlier, social is not just a nice thing to do. Social is critical to the sort of overall overarching experience of what a millennial is doing when they go to a show. The ability to share their experience across all the social networks is incredibly important. It's beyond sort of kind of description. So the ability to kind of create these sort of social media campaigns that allows fans and attendees to feel like they're getting something extra, something better, and to create a richer, more meaningful experience, again, where they can share those FOMO and YOLO moments and feel like they're so much cooler than everyone else and share that on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is hugely important. We did a program with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, where if you downloaded the Stagecoach app, Stagecoach, for those of you unfamiliar, is the country music festival that happens the week after Coachella down in the desert. If you brought your Stagecoach, if you download the Stagecoach app and agreed to receive push notifications and messages through the app, you would then receive really cool rewards from Bud Light. Some of which were, once you were on the premises, they identified where you were, they would give you express line passes to beat the crowds, cut the lines, and have access, front row access to the bars immediately. Secondly, if you were, based on your location, they would encourage you to visit the Up for Whatever, House of Whatever Bud Light activation site. You entered again, sought refuge from the 100+ degree heat, where you had really cool sort of kind of additional benefits of Bud Lights and food credits. While what was really hugely important and kind of elevated that experience is if you said thank you to Bud Light for these added bonuses, you would then receive elevated VIP experiences, which would translate to VIP access, corral pit passes to see your favorite country artist up close and personal in front of the stage. Again, creating amplified, enhanced experiences where the brand, i.e. Bud Light, becomes the hero of it. Plus, you have the data capture and the virality of that experience being shared across fans and enthusiasts' social networks. Point 4, mobile first. I know it's cliche to say at this point, but you have to really shift your digital first strategy to a mobile first strategy because everything, especially around live events, is happening through the mobile device. Mobile is the key driver in live events sort of kind of business and operations and how we handle our business. from discovery in terms of identifying new music artists through Pandora online radio or through Spotify or Apple Music, to purchasing that music on impulse. 46% you saw millennials are buying music through their mobile device. That number is going to only increase. As a brand or a marketer, how do you become a part of that experience that creates unique benefits, unique rewards, access to artists, where you play the hero of creating something even cooler as a result? To the third part of the process, which is the in-venue experience. Creating extended and enhanced experiences through your mobile phone, through surprise and delights and examples I just shared with you, plus the social media integrations, the ability to share and that awesome sort of once-in-a-lifetime moment with your friends and peers. And ultimately, also the beacon and sort of proximity-based messaging, identifying where you are for wayfinding to kind of beat the crowds and have hasten that ability to get a new drink or a beer or some food, as well as the in-seat dining and recommendations that can, again, create a better experience through your mobile phone. And finally, post-event. Now that you've collected all this incredible information that makes you a smarter marketer and more tactical in terms of your marketing efforts, you collect all this data, and then that really enhances and hones in and cleans up your sort of database and email marketing efforts through the phone. And then you begin the cycle once again. Better strategy, smarter marketing, more concise, right place, right time messaging. And finally, connect with connectors. I talked about millennials ad nauseum just now. But the thing is that not all millennials are alike. They're 80 million strong, and I understand that they're building their brand loyalties right now, so you want to market to them. But what's most important is to recognize that not all millennials are alike. Look, we were young. Just like Gen Xers, just like boomers, we hung out with, we knew people, not necessarily had to hang out with them, but we knew people that weren't exactly marketers' dream customers. Just because you're a millennial doesn't mean that you're a marketer's dream customer. Think about it in terms of maximizing your return on investment, that there's maybe some people on the fringe of the perimeter that might not necessarily be your best brand apostles. However, there's a subset of millennials. They are the millennials who attend live events that are most inclined to kind of help curry your brand and carry your brand to greater heights. They are your brand apostles. They are your brand evangelists. They are the influencers who are connecting to all their friends and peers across all the social networks. And they are the ones who are going to help you make sure that you preserve your leadership position in your industry. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions for Scott? Questions? Right up here.
How many times did I say millennials?
Kevin has a mic.
Just curious, how do you measure the impact of like some of those programmatic things you said, the Bud Light one? Like what were the KPIs that got measured?
For Bud Light, it was how they kind of evaluated the social media sort of traction in terms of what was being shared. And they saw a huge sort of kind of brand lift, especially among those people who were on the premise and activated the app. They saw huge rewards. Not only in terms of the people who were activating and taking advantage of those rewards, but in terms of the brand favorability and the elevated sort of brand love that they got as a result. I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't love a brand more when you're can expedite your delivery of Bud Light or any sort of drink, kind of beat the crowds, skip the lines, and also get some refuge from the heat?
Great. We're actually out of time, Scott, but
bummer.
thank you so much.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you.